Okay, right, let us start. I bet the weather's better where it is in Jamaica than it is in London. Anyhow, I gave a synopsis of what I'm going to talk about hornworts being these highly distinctive plants, occurring on all continents. And so what I'm going to do today is review the biology of hornworts in a wider context, and then have a look at Jamaica, what we might have there. Well, all right, hornworts belong to a group of plants called bryophytes, mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. They're really the equivalent of some of the fossils you get in the Burgess Shale 508 million years ago. MYA stands for 500 million years ago, and this is a typical picture of a moss. It has these sticky uppy bits, and it has a perennial leafy area. The leafy shoots produce sex organs, produce eggs and sperm. The sperm fertilizes the egg, and from that grows up this structure known as the sporophyte, which produces spores. This is known as an alternation of generations. So in mosses, the capsules, the sporophytes, are structurally complex. There's another example of a moss. These are the leafy gametophyte, these are the sporophytes, and this is a capsule, highly complex structurally. And that is the way you tell mosses from liverworts, because liverworts have a very simple sporophyte. It consists of a stalk with a capsule at the end. The capsule dehisces and the spores are liberated. In some leafy liverworts, and this is a species which is a sort that you find commonly in Jamaica, this is Marcantia. This has the sporophytes are born underneath little umbrellas, which get the spores into the air, and then they're dropped by gravity into moving air. There's separate male, these are male organs, which are also umbrellas and females. So you can see plants like this in Jamaica. Most liverworts, however, are leafy. This is a leafy liverwort, plenty looking like this in Jamaica. Usually they have divided leaves. So we have the sporophyte, the complex moss sporophyte, simpler liverwort sporophyte. And hornworts have horns. This is a hornwort, this is a thallus, and the thallus bears on the sporophyte bears horns. And this is by far the most enigmatic hornwort found in Jamaica, Leiosporoceros. You can see it's a flat thallus and it has horns. Right, a bit of philosophy. What captured my imagination about 50 years ago is how plants got onto land. And it was a good choice, an exciting subject. But when I began in the 1960s, it was a dead subject reserved for armchair botanists. And that's because there wasn't any new information. It was all speculation. And in the past, people worked alone in armchairs. And today we have things are very different. We have teamwork, and single authors are a rarity. These are some pictures of an armchair botanist day. This happens to be in Malaysia. This is Malaysia looking for hornworts. This is on Ascension Island looking for hornworts. And this is in Colombia looking for hornworts. Oh yes, and this is Tierra del Fuego, and this is a very chunky hornwort. You can see immediately it's a hornwort because you can see the horns. So as well as looking at my fundamental questions are how plants work, what are their evolutionary relationships. There's so many ways of looking at things. Teamwork is absolutely essential, and the sort of thing I do morphology on extant land plants. I work with fossil people. I do microscopy using various fancy imaging techniques. I do physiological studies. I don't do biochemistry. I combine with molecular people. And over the years, I've worked with a lot of people. I've highlighted two people here. Kenneth Spawn, he was my PhD supervisor, and he was an armchair botanist par excellence, but he didn't convert me. Another very important name you need to know is this man, Juan Carlos Villarreal, who is a Panamanian who works between Panama and Quebec, and he is a sort of a hornwort king in the world, and he's the sort of guy, if you want to get samples, it's to him you need to send them. And I see for a lot of people I've worked with, give you a time frame. Origin of the Earth, same age as meteorites, 4, 5, 6, 7 million years old. Life, 3,500 million years old. Eukaryotes, or big cells, 1,500. But the important thing in my time frame is life on land. And life got onto land 470, 480 million years ago. And we know this from molecules, morphology, development, and fossils, which together are called a total evidence phylogeny. If we look at the land plant tree of life, at the bottom we have plants, and land plants are right at the bottom of the land plant tree are bryophytes. Bryophytes are right at the bottom of the land plant tree. Whichever way you look at it, that's where bryophytes are. Some things are still unresolved. We don't know whether hornworts or liverworts came first, and the biggest problem is we're dealing with long evolutionary branches where most of the things are extinct. But basically, a land plant tree, the question is, are hornworts or liverworts at the bottom? I personally think hornworts at the bottom, and mosses are derived. And then the other big difference I should point out is that two of the funny words, which you may not have heard before, is that bryophytes are poikilohydric. That is to say, they dry out under drying conditions. Whereas all the other plants, vascular plants, are homeohydric. This is Lycopodium. This maintains water balance. Now, it's important we know about poikilohydric because it imposes major restrictions on growth. Because when things dry out, they shut down and can stay shut down for long periods. So they have long periods of dormancy. When you wet them, they rapidly resume metabolism and are fine. What kills them is abnormally fast rates of desiccation. But poikilohydric plants work completely differently from homeohydric plants. So our problem with the base of the tree of life is whether hornworts with their horns, or whether thalloid liverworts or leafy liverworts came first. We don't actually know, but I personally go for hornworts. Oh yes, the key features of land plants. How many of you heard your word matratrophy? Matratrophy. You've probably heard the term placental nutrition. These are the key features of land plants. Water and food conducting cells. Hornworts don't have these. They've all got cuticles. They've all got stomata, which are pores. They've all got intercellular spaces and association with fungi. Right. How do algae differ from land plants? The difference is not because algae are green or blue, brown or red and slimy. The difference is that algae liberate their gametes into the sea or fresh water. They have naked eggs, whereas land plants, the eggs are enclosed in a thing called an archegonium. The egg sits at the bottom of a chamber here. The sperm comes swimming along, attracted to the archegonium, and the sperm finds its way and fertilizes the egg. And the embryo develops sitting inside a closed chamber. And the closed chamber gives the developing embryo its nutrients. Developing embryo is nurtured by its mummy. This is a picture of a placenta. This is the sporophyte. This tissue here is being nurtured by the surrounding gametophyte. And it's a very complicated junction between the sporophyte here and the gametophyte. And the cells you find here at the junction are the same as you find in a mammalian placenta. So this is a sort of equivalent of mammalian placenta. So where do we see maternal nutrition in the living world? Which of the following have placentas? If we had a bit more time, I could give you a test and we'll test you at the end of the presentation. Humans and rats and mammals, they've got placentas, whereas none of this lot do. Platypus, birds, lizards, amphibians, reptiles, octopus, earthworms don't. We look at plants, the algae don't have placental nutrition, but mosses, hornworts, liverworts, and all land plants have placentas. So I said, why do you look like a plant? Because you've got a placenta. There are various key features of hornworts, which I'll just go through briefly, not all of them, the more visually striking ones: chloroplasts, sperm, stomata. Right. Chloroplasts. The chloroplasts of hornworts are algal-like. That many hornworts, or most hornworts, have just got one chloroplast per cell, which is a feature you find widely distributed in the algae. They've also got things called pyrenoids. These are pictures of the chloroplasts, the hornwort. They're huge, one per cell. This one, there are two per cell. And they've got this funny looking thing in the middle. If you look at electron micrographs of this funny thing in the middle has this sort of granular stuff in it. This granular stuff is a structure called the pyrenoid. The granular stuff is rubisco, which all of you know slips off the tongue, ribulose, bisphosphate, carboxylase. This is the commonest protein in the world. There's a lot of it in hornworts. It's in every plant. It's rather nice that we have the commonest plant visible in hornworts. Spermatozoids. Land plant sperm are coiled. Some go one way, some go the other, and you can't have a cross-threaded sperm. And in terms of spermatozoids, hornworts are at the bottom of the land plant tree with a common ancestor with an uncoiled sperm. I'll show you what I mean. These are wonderful reconstructions by my friend Karen Renzalia, who works in Illinois. This is a hornwort sperm, two flagella. It has a coiled nucleus, and it has a structure known as the spline, which is a sort of cytoskeleton holding the whole thing together. And this sperm is coiling, sorry, coiling this way. It's coiling this way. It's coiling this way. This sperm, which is everything else in land plants, is coiling the other way. So hornworts have these unique sperm that coiled the wrong way. Stomata. And for looking at stomata, we've used some fancy equipment, and we've used something called cryoscanning electron microscopy, where you can freeze things in liquid nitrogen and look at them in the frozen state. Doing this, you can look at them in different states of hydration and dehydration. And what happens in vascular plants, in the homohydric plants, is that stomata close under water stress. And the mechanism for this is a potassium pump, which pumps potassium in and out of cells. What we found from looking at hornworts is that the potassium pump is absent by doing X-ray microanalysis of stomata, and they're unaffected by different states of hydration. These are what hornworts stomata look like. They're pores, and gaseous exchange can take place through the pores. Vascular plants, these open and close. In hornworts, they're irrevocably fixed. Whatever you do to a hornwort stoma, it stays up. They're pretty bomb-proof. And we worked all this out using this new toy known as a cryo-ICM. It's quite a harrowing process. This is liquid nitrogen being poured into the machine. You put the specimen into a sealed a liquid nitrogen chamber, and then put it into the microscope. And a lot of things can go wrong when you're working at low temperatures. It's rather like working in outer space. So, hornwort stomata, they don't function as they do in vascular plants. Their function is very different. They don't regulate gaseous exchange. They facilitate drying out. When we discovered this, it led to a major conflict between stomatal biologists, and a real war sort of broke out by those who said our results were rubbish, except we repeated our experiments and they came out the same again. We've also found the same in mosses. So this is another very important thing to learn when you're working with bryophytes. Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind, because whatever you do, the results are never going to be what you expect. Things always turn out somewhat different. By the way, there is a prize. I'm not giving it, but somebody can, if you can identify the three actors in this clip. %90 of land plants are associated with fungi. They form symbioses. The starting point is a living fungus in a living host cell. Fungi are absent, strangely, in mosses. There's huge diversity in liverworts. The way the symbiosis works is that the green plant gives the fungus carbohydrate, helps it to grow, and the fungus gives the green plant nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, increases the amount of nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus present in low quantities. There are a lot of fungi in liverworts which have been gained and lost over 70 million years. This is a complex liverwort phylogeny, and we see different groups. Green, the blue, the red are very different groups of fungi which have come and gone in the evolution of liverworts. When we drew this tree, which was about 2010, we had no idea what happened in hornworts, and we discovered in hornworts that their fungi are very different from those in liverworts. And this is what happens when you have a look at a section through a hornwort. These are sections through a hornwort thallus. The hornwort thalli, many have huge mucilage cavities. This is a huge mucilage cavity, which helps to keep the plant hydrated. In the cells surrounding the mucilage cavity, there are fungi, and these are fungal hyphae inside the cells in the hornwort thallus. The hornwort, though, is very special. It has another kind of symbiosis, a symbiosis with a blue-green bacterium nostoc. The blue-green bacterium colony looks like this. You have closely packed nostoc colonies, and the thing about these is they fix nitrogen, and they are very good at fixing nitrogen. Hornworts are better than fixing nitrogen in the symbiosis than free-living blue-green bacteria. Up to 50% of the cells in this blue-green bacterial colony will be fixing nitrogen. It's really rather special, and the presence of these colonies gives us a way of detecting whether we're dealing with a hornwort, because if you look at a hornwort thallus, you notice that all along the thallus are these very dark green black dots. These black dots are the nostoc colonies. Never see these in a hornwort. And Leiosporoceros is different from all other hornworts in that the blue-green bacterial colonies are not in round blobs, but they're in lines. The blue-green bacterial colonies in Leiosporoceros occur as these blue-green lines all along the thallus. So if you see a hornwort and it's got these, you know it's Leiosporoceros. It can't be anything else. Right. I've never been to Jamaica, just Tobago, Mexico, and Colombia. I know what you're going to say. I need to travel more. I went to Colombia in 2015, and as a result of that, we found some new liverworts and we found some new hornworts, which is working with Radstein and a couple of who works in Paris and in Germany, a couple of Colombians and me. So it was rather a good collecting trip. So what did we find? The first hornwort we found was in a lettuce plot. So asking, you know, are there any similar veggie fields in Jamaica? And I saw this lettuce plot and I thought, that's going to have a hornwort growing in it. But then there was a problem. It was privately owned. The farm was just off to the right, and the two Jamaican authors here are both university professors. They asked the farmer, could they look at his lettuce field? And they said, no, which wasn't very constructive. I couldn't ask because I can't speak Spanish. So the husband of one of the professors said, let me have a go. And immediately he asked, we got permission. So we managed to go into the plot, and what we found there was another hornwort. You can clearly see the horns here, and this is the genus Notothylus, where the horns, instead of sticking straight up, all the other ones you've seen, but lying flat on the thallus. So very near the lettuce field, we went in search, and now I'm sure if I show you these pictures, you'll recognize very similar kinds of places in Jamaica. These are just roadside banks. There's me on the roadside bank, and again, and the two Colombians are looking for hornworts. And that's the hornwort we collected. And I say we had 3 hornworts new to Colombia. So where are we with Jamaica today? I've been through all the papers about Jamaican hornworts. Well, thanks to Liz for seeking the references. But what we do need for Jamaica we need molecular samples. Nobody has ever sequenced a hornwort. And next time Liz goes to Jamaica, I'll send her with some vials where she can actually make molecular samples. We know for certain there are 6 species of hornwort in Jamaica. Anthoceros punctatus, which will be everywhere. Dendrosus crispus, which grows on trees, particularly tree ferns and palms with a lot of dead leaf debris around the trunks. So tree ferns, palms with leaf debris. Leiosporoceros grows on bare clay banks, and it really likes big vertical clay banks. So if you know of a place where there are these, you should be able to find it. Northoceros grows in very wet places. So what you need is a stream in deep shade in deep jungle. And if you go in the stream, you'll find it. I went to Brunei. I was external examiner there, and they took me out in the field into the jungle, and I said, "Is there anywhere where there's a stream here?" And they said yes. I went up to the stream and found Northoceros, which was new to Brunei. Notothymus, one with the flat sporophytes, you're going to find that in banks. You're going to find that in fields. And probably the commonest of the lot is Phaeoceros carolinianus. Again, you're going to find that all over the place. This number is far too low. I would expect that Jamaica will have a lot more Anthoceros and Notothymus. If we can't get up to double figures, it's pathetic. Anyhow, the figures, the names, if you didn't know them in the Monty Python sketch, are Terry Jones, Michael Palin, and Terry Gilliam. Anyhow, that's probably enough. But I hope I'll stop the screen share so we can get back to seeing each other. Okay. Right. Can you?
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Sorry to cut you off. You can continue your sentence.
No, that's fine. I just wondered whether can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly fine, yes.
So I should be able to hear you. A lot of people are muted. They need to be muted.
Oh, yes. Hold one moment.
People can unmute.
Are the others there? Anne, are you there? Jan, Lisa?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're here. I'm here.
So that was so interesting, and I have to apologize for the late start.
It doesn't matter. It works. That's the main thing. Once it started, it was terrific.
And we do have the recording, so we'll be sharing the recording with.
Oh yes,
with
I'm pleased about that. I think that's very important. Yeah, because what I've tried to do is tell you the most important things about hornworts. And I think what I've been through today are the things which are most important and which you can easily get a handle on and see. Which is
Jeff, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
As if I'm going to be going out there and looking for these hornworts, if we're going to try and run a field day where we're all going out together to do that, would you suggest that we try to go up into the edge of the mountains or something rather than look for fields lower down and banks?
Definitely go higher. Definitely go up. Yes, and go somewhere where you've got tree ferns. That shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
Look for the tree fern trunks. The other place you want sort of a stream flowing over rocks, ideally. Flowing over rocks in deep shade. And I'll put money on the fact that if you find a place like that, you'll find Northoceros.
Right.
Excellent.
Well, sounds like, although we have a place called hardware gap, which has all those things in abundance. And we're planning a field trip up there in January.
Does it have some nice bare clay banks? That's the other thing.
Well, there's a lot of vegetation, so there's not really many bare clay banks. And I was looking really hard at some banks about a week ago. I didn't see anything, but maybe I didn't have the right search image. I think we need to. I missed the first part of your presentation. I don't know whether you had pictures of these species, the ones that we're most likely to be seeing, so that
No,
we could
I
probably.
don't, unfortunately. But that's easy enough, because there is a Brazilian flora, and what I could do, I'll give Liz the relevant pages from the Brazilian flora.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. So we have a sort of
it's absolutely
improve our
great,
search
because
images.
there's a really good key in that. There's some nice pickies and a good key, very easy to use.
Great.
Yeah, that would be good. And maybe then we can send a PDF to Natural History Society, and then it can be distributed more easily that way.
Yeah.
Yes. But what you should do if you go out and you find them, for goodness sake, take pictures.
Right.
Lots
That's
of pictures,
important.
and we can send them straight to you, Jeff.
Oh, yes. The problem with I say take pictures, very easy not to do this, because habitats change, as you well know. Veggie grows fast on banks in Jamaica, and things can change from year to year. I mean, I've been to places where one year there's a lot, and the next year there is nothing. It's quite sort of surprising.
It's been very wet this year, so I think we have
yes,
good chance of finding them.
yes.
What about, I mean, if we were to collect samples, what do we need to do with them?
The molecular I'll sort out with Liz. You dry them.
Okay.
Do not collect them and dry them. Dry them as quickly as possible. The best place to dry bryophytes is under air conditioning. Air conditioning. Get them dry, and then they're sort of bomb-proof. Unfortunately, hornworts do not make attractive herbarium specimens. They look horrible. Now, by dry, yes. The other thing, if you're drying them, you must have mature sporophytes. I didn't mention this, but some of the key characteristics are the morphology, the micromorphology of the spores. So you definitely need to have sporophytes. So make sure you get decent specimens. Please make specimens. There's a friend of mine who, Karen Renzalia, had been to Jamaica in the 1970s. She went there on a holiday. She found Nothothylis, but she never made a specimen, which is very annoying. She's kicking herself for doing this, but no, you have to have specimen. Better say the dry specimen is fine, because you have the spores. From the spores, you can identify everything. Each species has distinctive spores.
I think that should be reasonably straightforward, but of course, if we're up on the mountain somewhere, it might take us a day.
Well, that's okay.
Longer than that before we can get it anywhere.
Yes, I mean, what is horrible if you're stuck somewhere like that. But I have been like that myself for a week or more, and you can't get anything dry. But no, get stuff back and dry as soon as possible.
But if we kept them wet while we can't get them dry, as long as it's with rainwater and not tap water, they should survive.
Yeah, you don't get them any wetter than they are when you collect them.
Yeah.
And do not touch hornworts with tap water. It's a great way of killing them.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, hopefully we'll have exactly the right weather conditions when we go up. And
but what altitude is it?
3,000 to 4,000 feet.
I'm just thinking, there could be some other interesting stuff up there too. Oh yes, what else you'll see up there is a huge thalloid liverwort grown in flat, wet places by streams. Flat, that's monoclea. I showed the sporophytes of monoclea. I'll put it back again.
I took some pictures last week, so I'll send them to you.
Sorry, I lost it.
But I don't think I didn't see anything with horns, but I was looking.
No, but if you see, if you've got a recording of this, there's some pictures of monoclea. Monoclea occurs in Jamaica. There are two species of monoclea. There's one which is in New Zealand, and there's one which is in the New World. And it occurs in, I've seen it in Mexico and Venezuela and Colombia. But it's a spectacular plant. If you see it, you will you'll know it. Sometimes it can occur as sheets on a wet woodland floor.
Oh wow!
That's worth seeing in itself. It's the biggest it's the biggest New World thalloid liverwort.
Wow. So where I live is at 2,000 feet, and we don't have any tree ferns. But could I be seeing them here too?
Oh yes. The other thing is, do you have palms with sort of dead leaf bases growing by roadsides?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't want palms with naked trunks are no good, but palms with dead leaf bases, because that's the place for Dendroceros. It doesn't usually occur in close forests. I've only seen Dendroceros in the open. I mean, I've driven around various countries and I've been driving along and see, oh, that looks likely, and very often it is the right place for Dendroceros. Because Dendroceros is ever so pretty.
Oh, most of the palms at this level are like tall, like royal palms, rather than
they're
much at the base.
Yeah, they're no good.
Those there, just regular. Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I think Lisa accidentally unmuted herself, so I don't think she meant to interject.
Yes.
Yeah.
Christopher's muted.
So in terms of ecology, does anything depend on them? What contribution do they make ecologically?
That is a good question. Well, their presence in fields will enhance soil fertility because they fix nitrogen. And in Tierra del Fuego, whereas that picture I showed my colleague Sylvia Presto with a handful, I'm sure that they increase soil fertility in the forest.
That makes sense. That's really important.
It is quite. I mean, there are some fields you can always tell whether it's an unfertilized field. They hate fertilizer. If you find a field, and sometimes you could well see this, which is just a carpet, continuous carpet of hornwort, and that tells you something that this is poor soil, and a lot of the crop plants are probably getting a lot of their nutrients from the nitrogen fixation by the hornwort.
Oh, how fascinating!
But of course, a lot of farmers are trying to put fertilizer down on their land because they want to get better crops, and so I think that's what you've just said is really important. So we're looking for soil. Yes,
you are indeed. You're looking for downtrodden primitive fields, I'm afraid. I mean, when I was young, I went to Cornwall, and in Cornwall in the 1960s, the fields were full of hornworts. Absolutely brilliant. It was wonderful. Walking carpets of hornworts. Very rare today, and this is because of use of fertilizers.
Yep.
One of the few places you can find them is in Isles of Scilly, where they grow bulbs. They don't use fertilizer there, and you can see them. But it's a dramatic. The differences that occur in your lifetime you don't realise, and you only realise when it's too late that you should have made better records.
So Jeff, we're looking for spaces where we haven't got a lot of grass cover or other plant cover. They need to have a bit of bare soil, do they?
Yes.
Like on a bank or on a field that's not in very good condition that people are going left.
Yes.
So if it's covered in dead leaves and grass is growing up over it, there's not a lot of point looking for it there.
No point whatsoever.
Okay, great.
So arable fields, and a lot of different kinds of arable fields. Oh yes, sorry, maize fields. Presumably there are a lot of maize fields in Jamaica.
Not so many, not very much.
No, maize fields, cabbage fields.
Cabbage, yes.
Yes, that's all
Some
right.
in some places.
Nice bare soil between the plants.
Mm.
But
Okay.
you should be fine. Or something else. I don't know about the geology of Jamaica. They don't like limestone.
Aha.
Ah.
That's the problem.
That's important. Okay, so that rules out here. That rules out like 80% of Jamaica, but certainly focuses on the Blue Mountains.
Oh, I think this is incredibly helpful. This you work through things. Yes. No, I wouldn't go looking for hornworts in limestone country. I'd go looking for other things. But not particularly.
What would we be looking for?
Oh, I've been looking for other thalli liverworts.
Okay. Are you interested in pictures of those as well?
Oh yes, please.
Okay. Are we likely to find any new species, or is it more likely to be that we're going to find some of these ones that you've already identified?
I think yes. You're going to find some new hornworts. I put money on that. You're also going to find some thalloid liverwort. There's a genus called Rixia.
Oh.
I think there could well be more Rixias in Jamaica than are recorded. Jamaica has not been very well recorded at all. I mean, if I was coming to Jamaica, the sort of thing I do before I go is have a look at the checklist and think, yes, so, Rixias are plants, ephemeral plants, and again, arable fields. So
yeah, go ahead. Liz, go ahead.
Okay. No, I just wondered about Rixia because there's one that in Britain that's aquatic in ponds. So do you think we might find that?
Oh, you may well. But it won't be in ponds. It'll be where the Northoceros grows. It grows on over sort of wet rocks.
Okay.
So and it will actually look like the Rixia fluitans we get in Britain. Although maybe other species, closely related species. Yes, I've seen that kind of Rixia in the tropics on growing over very wet rocks, sort of dripping rocks that are dripping all the time.
Right.
I have a question. This is Lisa here. You listed quite a few of these hornworts that have been found or that come from Jamaica. How did you know about these from other people?
There are two papers on Jamaican. There's a Jamaican liverwort and hornwort checklist. Got them out of that, and there's another paper which is very poor because they didn't cross-reference the checklist. And those are really the only. They're the key works. The species I listed for you are the most up to date, and they got the right names.
Okay.
Again, this recording is very useful for that.
I can email those PDFs of those two papers. I think they're the same ones, Jeff, aren't they? That
they are, yes.
I had, yeah.
Yeah, and I also did some Googling, which I normally do, trying to find things out. Yeah, those are the key pieces of information.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, lot to think about.
Yep. Very, very fascinating. So one of the area where we're going to be mostly looking for these is in the Blue and John Crow Mountains National Park. If we find them, would there be conservation measures that we should recommend, or in terms of the park, like what should we be telling them about these species? And I mean, obviously,
basically maintain the habitats where you find them. The other thing is collecting. What about permits for national parks? You need to check on that.
Yeah, there's actually quite a strict collecting permit regime in Jamaica, which is a little challenging and expensive.
I think you need to sort that out. The reason is that if you need that, because I work at the Natural History Museum, and any reputable museum will not accept specimens that that haven't been collected properly.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I tried to do that to send something to Kew Gardens in London recently, and I was told no, we haven't got a permit for it, so you can't. So,
You can't,
so that yeah.
And it becomes very important if you're publishing. You really
So-
need,
Right.
but it's good. It's good for conservation. This is actually that
Yeah.
you have got
So-
proper permits, because it
Yeah.
has everything
No,
documented. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be very tedious, but
Yeah.
but it's
So
worth it.
it's all, yeah. So I mean, I think so. The strategy should be that there's no permit needed to take photographs. So we need to take photographs and see what we can send you. And if you see things that are sufficiently interesting to justify trying to get the permits, then we would work with you.
I would try and get permits before you go, if you can.
I think that's quite a long term, because it's not, we're not going to get a permit in 2 months. I think that's
Exactly.
completely impossible.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
well, all right, even if it takes a long time, it's worth getting the
It's,
application in train.
well, I think that would, I mean, it's expensive, so we'd have to decide who was going to pay the cost. It's
how
time
expensive?
consuming.
How
And
expensive is expensive?
it's about 20,000 Jamaican dollars, I think, which would be divide by about what the current pound is.
It's about 160 or 170 to the Jamaican to the pound, I think.
Yeah,
something
so we're
like that.
talking about yeah.
Okay. Well, look, keep me informed of what's going on with that, and
Yeah, and then the other thing that they say, which is always very, very challenging, is that that you usually, to get the permit, you usually have to say what you're going to collect and how many. So if you haven't collected them before and you don't know, it makes it very difficult to to fill out the permit form.
So we do have to go and do a survey first,
Yeah,
and make sure we take the location, do a GPS on
Yeah.
everywhere that we send where we take photos.
I would still take the specimens, even if you haven't got the permit. So you've got the
Ooh.
specimen, and then you can do things retrospectively. Do
Well.
not go away without specimens.
I have to think about that one.
well, that becomes challenging because it would be illegal to take the
Yeah,
specimens.
there are ways.
So-
There
so
are
then,
ways. around it.
yeah.
There are ways around
Anyway,
it.
I don't think we're going to be going anywhere that's inaccessible. So once we have the GPS points, we can go back. But as you say, like they can be a little bit.
Ambiguous.
I mean, I've collected things and got permits later. And I've not been arrested. Do not have a criminal record. So
yeah, but for people who are living there, it's slightly different, Jeff,
Yes.
from people coming in from outside. So
yes.
I think we have to respect what
Oh,
our
of course.
Jamaican friends and colleagues think.
Of course, yes. Of course, you always do that. I mean, in actual fact, it's interesting in Colombia. I actually found another hornwort, which isn't in the paper I published, because it wasn't in a. It wasn't in an area where there were permits.
Yeah.
They've since got permits for that, so that's okay. But I couldn't publish it. Couldn't publish it then because of that.
Well, there may be places, if it was on somebody's private land, a farmer or something,
Yeah.
and they said, yes, you can take some specimens, we could do that, because that's not the same as going into the national park.
No, that's a very different game if you're in a national park. Okay.
So I think we just got to balance that out and see, what we can do and what we can't do. And and think about it as we go along. The first thing is, I think we should get out there and see what we can find, which would be
Yeah.
very exciting.
Yes. Terrific.
Mm.
And are they found in abundance once you find them?
Sometimes they are, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Mm.
I'm sure.
Sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've been looking at bryophytes all my life, and I'm used to seeing things in huge abundance for things that are sort of less than a millimetre in diameter. And so,
Mm.
but hornworts aren't that small. Hornworts are nice, chunky size. Yeah.
Mm.
Jeff, if we have a spell of dry weather, which can happen, then the places where they might have been growing rather well, they might have desiccated and become dormant. So that's also
true.
going to be tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, if you have a bank which is dried out, what you can tell, if you've got dried out hornwort, what you will see are black threads.
Okay.
Mm.
Sporophytes, long black threads. Actually, since this has been recorded, that's another thing. I'll show you some pictures of desiccated hornworts from on Ascension, which is a useful thing to see. So, with the long black threads, very, very distinct. There's nothing else that looks like them. You can't mistake them for a fungus or anything else. So I'll dig out a picture of those.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But I'm shortly going to have to go because I've got another thing happening shortly.
Okay. Same here, actually. So have I.
I've got another Zoom.
I have a bird club AGM coming up shortly.
Mm.
But anyhow, look, you got my email. I hope that was useful and interesting. And
Yes. Yes.
fun talking to you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you so much, Liz, for being here. We really, really appreciate it. Again, we're so sorry for the late start, but it's all recorded, as we said, and as Anne pointed out, we'll share the recording with you at a later date. So thanks so much. We're looking forward to you coming, Liz, and we collecting some stuff, hopefully finding some things.
And we'll try and get Jeff over again as for the first time eventually.
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm gonna leave now as well. And so great to meet you all, and looking forward to seeing you in person next time in a couple of months, hopefully.
Yes,
Okay.
Until then.
And I'll share my email with everybody as well. So some of you have got it. So if anybody wants to ask me about anything or get any more information, then just email me, and that's absolutely fine.
Okay. Bye then.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
again.
Yeah. See you soon. Yeah.
Right.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.